Hello, friends. We're going to look into if there is going to be an October surprise. Let's get right into it.
77 years old, and I get butterflies in my stomach every 4 years. But I don't change my prediction in response to the polls. If I did, I would have been dead wrong about 2016. I would have been dead wrong about 2012 when the polls turned against Obama around this time in October. I would have been dead wrong about 1988 when George H.W. Bush fell 17 points behind. My system is based upon the fundamental forces that drive elections. That is, it's governing, not campaigning, that counts. And the keys gauge the strength and performance of the White House party. And this whole idea of an October surprise is a huge myth. I've always made my predictions before then and never changed them. When I was predicting Trump in 2016, we had this immense surprise of the Access Hollywood tape with Trump bragging about assaulting women. Pundits were saying he's dead. You got to change your prediction. I didn't, and I was right.
Frank Luntz, what do you believe of the mythology versus the matter of fact of an October surprise?
Alan Lichtman is brilliant, and he's proven it through decades and decades of success. So I'm not going to challenge it. I'll also acknowledge that the polling this year is not indicative of virtually anything. The swing states, only all 7 of them are within 2 points of each other. It is unclear that the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris had any impact at all. Now, let me be candid, Chris, because I think it's important where we acknowledge where we get it wrong. I thought that Trump's performance was so horrific in that debate that that would kill him, and it has not. And I'll also emphasize to viewers right now that Trump has incredible staying power, and that even though he seems to be unhinged, his own voters don't mind. In fact, they seem to embrace it. Chris, I think it's too close to call. I've never been afraid to make a prediction. But in those states and among those key voting blocks, Donald Trump is doing surprisingly well, and Harris has been unable to close the deal.
For the people, Frank, the idea of an October surprise, do you believe in that? And what would it have to look like to make a difference in this election?
The October surprise is Joe Biden dropping out. The October surprise is Donald Trump being shot. The October surprise is Donald Trump being potentially shot at a second time. The October surprise is Israel and Gaza and Hamas and Hezbollah. The October surprise, we've been having it again and again and again. We just had it in September, or we had it in August, or we had it in July. So yes, we've been this has been the most shocking, unstable election in terms of the events that have been happening. But Chris, the polling data has been surprisingly stable. And
right.
Harris has not moved at any point in the last 2 weeks. So I think we've got a race that is simply too close to call.
Yeah, friends, like the gentleman said in the following clip that we have coming up, and the one we just had, we've already had October surprises. Several. The 2 assassination attempts at Trump. I'm not still so sure that they didn't, do that themselves. I could be totally wrong, but I wouldn't put anything past Republicans. And Harris, stepping in for Biden. And who knows? There could be something else coming up. But let's see. Anyway, we got one more clip coming up for you. Stay tuned and watch it. Thanks.
States are within the margin of error. This after a long, strange trip in which nothing has moved the nation from an intractable divide. When it began, there was a lot of talk about a third-party factor, but they couldn't find a ticket to meet the moment. And the fresher face from Florida never got the traction that some had anticipated. So Trump cruised to the nomination without ever having to debate his opponents, and was actually bolstered by 4 indictments and suffered no setback among Republicans even after being convicted. The general election field then took shape. Age was immediately a factor. The only thing these candidates could agree on was to debate at the start of summer and not at the end. It didn't go well for Biden. He yielded to pressure to step aside. Talk of a quick competition yielded to a coronation. The torch quickly passed. Another debate was soon scheduled with a clear Harris victory. And now the race returned to where it first began, a deadlock, which is the biggest surprise of all, that despite a storyline that, if pitched in Hollywood, would have been rejected as too fantastical, nothing has really moved the needle. Which brings me to October. The longshoreman strike has been suspended, but there's still war in the Middle East, war in Ukraine, the aftermath of a devastating hurricane, and the yet-to-be-determined impact of an 11th-hour legal filing by the special counsel. Plenty of time for events we could never forecast to unfold, featuring people whose names we might not even know. And maybe even their pets. Anybody remember Kristi Noem's dog? Kristi Noem's goat? Bobby's brainworm? Bobby and the bear? Bobby and the whale? J.D. Vance and the childless cat ladies? And of course, the unsubstantiated claim of eating dogs and cats in Springfield. You can't make this stuff up. But here's the lesson. Yesterday on my SiriusXM radio program, Professor Alan Lichtman, he with those 13 keys that allow him to predict the election winner, this year he says it's Harris. Well, here's what he said about an October surprise.
One of the greatest myths of American politics is the October surprise. I have never changed my prediction in response to an October surprise because the keys gauge the big picture of incumbent governance and strength and don't sway by the events of the campaign.
Right. In 40 years, he's never changed a prediction, and he's called them correctly in 9 of the last 10 elections. The October surprise is that there will be noise, but there will be no surprise. 2016 and 2020, and the Ragin' Cajun, James Carville, the legendary Democratic strategist. He ran Bill Clinton's 1992 winning campaign and is the focus of a new CNN film called Carville. Winning is everything, stupid. It premieres tonight at 7 p.m. James, big jobs report yesterday, robust stock market, declining interest rates, tamed inflation. If it's the economy, stupid, why isn't Harris ahead?
Well, first of all, you forgot the dropping crime rate, which is really impressive. She's slightly ahead, and it's not the election. These things tend to break one way or the other at the end. So if there's 7 swing states, the least likely result is they break 4-3. But I can't stop the commentariat from saying it's going to be neck and neck and it's going to come down to this. I think it'll break at the end. I think someone will carry swing states 5-2 or 6-1. And whoever does that will do well in the House and do well in the Senate. But this thing is a long way from decided.
Okay, so you're disagreeing with the commentary. David Urban, do you think somebody's going to emerge? I assume if you do, you believe it's going to be Donald Trump, or do you think we could be having this conversation the Saturday before the Tuesday election and still sitting here saying, who the hell knows?
Yeah, listen, far be it from me to disagree with the legendary James Carville, right? I mean, I don't get legendary in my introduction, so it's pretty good.
Carville does.
Listen, it's pretty good, Michael, but listen, I like to think that maybe I'm the third most knowledgeable person on this panel about Pennsylvania today between you and Carville and me. So, but I would just say this, Michael. I think that it's going to be tight. Look, the electorate in Pennsylvania is split. It's a little bit different than when James ran the Wofford campaign back in the day there, and it's changed a lot, right? The Democrats are now Republicans. Republicans are now Democrats in Pennsylvania. It's a crazy place. And I don't think, when I'm out and about in Pennsylvania, I hear from people that, they're just not ready to commit to Kamala Harris. They haven't seen her enough, heard from her enough. Trump's out there every day, like on the hustings, and Kamala Harris just hasn't made the pitch yet, hasn't asked for the vote out there. And if she does lose, I think it's because she's kept in bubble wrap on a shelf someplace. They're playing defense, not offense. They're playing like they're 14 points up, not like they're neck and neck. And so I think it's going to be close just because of the nature of the electorate.